Welcome to Lighting the Way to Home Ownership, Houses into Homes. I live in Bates Hendricks. My wife and I actually just moved there at the end of June, and we are passionate about that neighborhood. We love our neighbors, and so excited to be here with you guys. Everybody's like-minded here and looking to give back to their community. Just wanted to share a quote from a B.O.B. song this morning. He said, growing up, he had no neighbors, and that's why they called it hood. And so we're kind of here to put the neighbors in the neighborhood, right? No matter what area of town you're in, we're all giving back. We're all trying to rehab our community, whether it be actually a physical property or just the community itself. And so excited that you guys are joining us. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. In 2009, world-traveling Indianapolis native single mom Robin Myers bought an abandoned house in a high-crime area of Indy, renovated it through low-cost, high-quality workmanship, and now competes with neighbors to see who has the prettiest yard. Today, she shares with us the story of turning this blight to bright. Please welcome Indy police officer, Armed Forces veteran, retired military policeman, U.S. Army Special Agent, corporate security investigator, Miss Congeniality beauty pageant contestant before Sandra Bullock, middle school and high school cheerleader, professional cheerleader for our Indianapolis Colts. Give it up for the cheerleader cop, Robin Myers.
Might start some little, I don't know, seismic action or something if I start jumping around here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out and taking time out of your busy schedules. I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Do I just shut this down?
Yeah, sorry.
Is this what we're doing? Okay, I'm just going to allow my slide to rotate. I'm not going to speak from the slides themselves. You're going to see some before and after pictures of a house that I purchased. You'll see me doing a little crime fighting in these high crime areas too. It's a little rough out there, I tell you. You got to watch those little girls that are on these bikes that you're going to see coming up. Okay, I'm going to set my timer, and I'm going to go through my notes. But at any time, if you have questions, go ahead and raise your hands. I'm going to make this as relaxed and comfortable as we can, so that I can share some of what I've done with others, because I would like everyone out here to take advantage of every opportunity available to you so that we can build some strong neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, it's not easy. Those of you who live in some rough areas, you know it's not easy, especially being a police officer. We're not allowed to police our own neighborhoods. I just want you to know that. And so it makes it a little tougher for me to want to take action, and I really can't. I have to rely on my wonderful, strong-willed neighbors to take the action, and I'll be right there to support them. So, as we've explained, oh, there's me fighting that hardened criminal right there. As we've explained, or as it has been explained, I was an Army Special Agent. I was in the Army for over 13 years. I moved around this nation. I lived in Korea, gave birth to one of my kids over here in Korea. So I have had the blessing, the opportunity to live in urban areas, suburban areas, little towns, large cities, another country, and at the time it was a third world country. So we lived a bit primitive. So definitely I developed a sense of style, a sense of quality that I choose. With that sense of style and quality also comes a sense of belonging and responsibility. I'm totally deviating from my notes right now. I bought a house here in Indianapolis back in the early 2000s. My sense of quality and style, let me say, I like pre-existing homes. They offer character. The new homes are kind of cookie cutter, not a lot of character to them really. I bought one of those new homes, built from ground up, neighborhood association fees and all that happy stuff back in the early 2000s. It was large, it had those great amenities that I like, the granite countertops, yada yada. It was too much for me, it was too big, I foreclosed. I went through those emotions of embarrassment because I failed. I was totally ashamed. I had to find another home. And in doing so, knowing I couldn't get a loan because of any kind, because I had foreclosed, I had to look for inexpensive ways to buy a home. I ended up finding a home that was built in the early 1920s. At the point I bought that house, it had been vacant for 13 years. It had burned out, or had been burned. So some of these before pictures that you see are samples of the condition the house was in at the time I purchased it. What you're seeing now to the right, it's actually my neighbor who came over for some milk for her coffee. And that's the condition it's in now. I bought this house through a program at the time known as Indy Land Bank. It is now referred to as Renew Indianapolis. It's still Indy Land Bank. And at the time I bought this house, it was, there was a program through Indy Land Bank where abandoned houses were offered to firefighters and police officers for a greatly discounted rate, a flat rate of $2,500. It's like, woo-hoo, I'll bring you a check. And I did. I paid cash, if you will, for this house that was burned out. And this kitchen had nothing in it. But I owned it. I had the deed, daggone it. And I got that great American dream. I'm living it. I have home ownership. Granted, not the white picket fence. And quite the American dream that you dream of when you hear that, or envision when you hear that term, American dream. So I buy this house. With buying this property from Indy Land Bank as a public servant for that flat rate of $2,500, there was a caveat. The police officer or the firefighter that bought a property was mandated to live inside that house once it is fixed up. And we're also mandated to get involved in community activities, programs. We're responsible to not only bring this property back to life, put it back on the tax rolls for the city of Indianapolis, we also had to help beautify our community and our neighborhood. I'll be honest. I moved in this neighborhood near 29th and MLK. It's one of our very high crime areas in this city. I used to patrol that area. So demographically, I'm very familiar with what this neighborhood has to offer. But I took the chance. I was reluctant. Didn't want to live in the hood. I lived abroad. I lived in suburbia. Ooh, I don't want to live in the hood. After 5 years, I got to tell you, I wouldn't move now. I've got the home I want. I love the way it is today. This is my retirement right here. It's quaint. I don't need those big 4-bedroom cookie cutter homes anymore. I just need what will make me happy and help build my community. As I would work in the yard and I'd take down the chain link fence that had the trees overgrown along the chain links, I would see people drive by. And my father, who was a police officer for 52 years, I have to throw that in there, taught me, as I work in the community, wave. Just wave to everybody. Every walk of life. Doesn't matter what color, size, just wave. The power of a wave is so incredible. I know when I was on patrol, if I'd wave at folks and I'd get a little bird flown at me, I at least knew where I stood. But most people would, it would force a smile upon them, you know, they would just smile and like, who's this weirdo, and they'd wave. I would wave to people as I would work in the yard tearing down that old chain link fence. One of my neighbors who now I refer to as a very dear friend. She is over 50 years old, said she was born in that neighborhood, was raised in the house 2 doors down from me. She explained that she watched that neighborhood go from the neighborhood that a lot of us are familiar with, where everybody looks out for each other. And God knows, don't get in trouble. And if the neighbor caught you, you're going to get it from the neighbor, then they're going to call your dad, and I happen to grow up next to my grandparents, so I get it from my grandparents too. She went from that kind of a neighborhood where your neighbors cared about you, cared about your property, cared about your kids, to a neighborhood where no one knew anyone's name. The dumping in the lots was just out of control. The elderly that had died off and moved away, those homes had become dilapidated, neglected. That wave gave this woman, who became a bit of a recluse, she was so fearful of coming out and speaking to anyone because she didn't trust anyone anymore. That wave gave her the power to smile, wave back, and then greet me. Now we're very dear friends. And every Sunday evening, we get together and she comes over to the house and we eat dinner. At this point, she's in a bad situation, and I'm going to help her work on her house. She makes less than $14,000 a year. She has a degenerative vision condition. She's had 2 hips replaced when she was a young child, and since that time, she's had one of them replaced because one of the hips gave out on her. She doesn't have the means or the ability to do this work to fix her house up, or she's at risk of losing it. She can't get a loan. I'm going to help her out. I'm not saying this to get accolades or recognition. For that matter, I don't care if no one knew what I was doing. All I care about is this woman who lives in this property that she was raised in doesn't lose it. I almost thought she lost it at this last tax sale. It's not lost. We're going to salvage this house. From that, I hope we can get to the point where we've got some good neighbors to build great neighborhoods. Just last Wednesday, I got into a tiff, and I'm saying it nicely, with a guy that every day he comes home. Whoa, whoa, who hears that? When you're inside your house and your doors and your windows are closed, who is absolutely fed up with that? Who goes out and says something to folks? Now let me ask this, who actually doesn't say anything? It's not comfortable, is it, to address that? But you wish somebody would say something, don't you? Keep in mind, I'm a police officer. And these folks know I'm a police officer. As a matter of fact, I've been victimized simply because I'm a police officer. And had my car broken into and things stolen out of it. I'm not allowed to police my neighborhood, but I tell you what, it's who I am. If I were not a police officer, I'd still be that one saying, come on, let's be a good neighbor. Turn that down. I can't even hear my television. And those of us that have the modern TVs and their number systems on the volume, I keep mine down at 5 and 7. And so many people say, gosh, can't you hear that? Turn that up. If I can't hear my television in my living room with my windows closed, and they're new windows because I've renovated the house, the insulation is really good in the house now, I'm proud of that. But with that said, if I can still hear that mess and the foul language that comes with that deep bass, I got to speak up as a citizen. We need more citizens to speak up, and I know I'm running out of time. We need more citizens to speak up and help one another to build these strong neighborhoods. I know I got, 2 minutes left. I'm going to just tell you, in 1982, criminologists came up with a theory, the broken window theory. And this theory, it's a metaphor. If you've got a broken window in a house, look at that, and if you leave that broken window unattended to for a day, a week, as time goes on, people see that someone doesn't care about that property. So another window gets broken. And maybe all of the windows get broken, and maybe somebody actually kicks in the door. And we've seen these abandoned houses. They'll kick in the door, now they're doing their dirty deeds. Prostitution, drugs, whatever else comes along with that. It doesn't have to be a broken window per se. Again, it's a metaphor. This broken window theory can be simply an empty lot that is neglected. And if it gets overgrown with weeds and grass, it's a great hiding place for our criminals and vermin. The rats and the mice and the other little critters, they carry diseases. Now, if we clean up that window, if we repair that window within a day or a week, or we keep that grass cut on that empty lot, even if we don't own it, we as a good neighbor live next door to an empty or abandoned lot, but we cut that grass anyway, that tells people. And they watch. And they pay attention to what's going on around them. And they're going to let someone know if something is wrong. Does that make sense? So that broken window theory goes from the broken window, people's perception that no one cares about this property, and that can grow into, well, if they don't care, now we've got criminal conduct that stems from that. That costs the city more money in taxes, because now they've got to come in and clean up the blighted areas that result from those broken windows. But if we can keep those broken windows repaired as they happen, we can keep our property values up, we can give more revenue to the city. None of us want to pay more taxes, but we also understand what it means if our property values increase and we get more benefit from that. Sorry about that. So if we can keep our property values up, send the message to folks that we care about our neighborhoods. Let's buy these properties, fix them up. Let's give people a reason to want to come to our communities, not fear coming to our communities because of the trash and the people hanging out with the loud music and selling drugs. Let's give them a reason to be proud of our city, of our neighborhoods. Let's enjoy where we live. Let's not fear the bullies, and that's the best I can call them. The people with the loud music, the people that are dealing the drugs that we fear, they're bullies. What do we do with bullies? Once you challenge them, what does that do to that bully? It deflates their ego. It knocks them down a notch or two. And when all of us as a community come in and say, we've had it, that bully will fade away. And eventually, they're going to run in fear from us. So this is my little story. It was a blessing in disguise that I foreclosed on my house. I thought, oh my God, world's coming to an end. I'm one of the worst people. I don't want anybody to know I foreclosed. You know what? I shout it to the world now. I foreclosed. And now I have a diamond in the rough. I love it. I am moved because my two daughters over here keep saying, Mom, let's renovate houses. Someone beat me to the punch. Mom, let's renovate houses. You're so good at it. Someone's much better. So down the road, I do intend to buy some other properties, one nearby, and open a bakery so that my up and budding bakery chef, pastry chef here can have a bakery. And I can have a conference center and a bed and breakfast. So I thank you. I didn't even go by my notes. I drafted 5 pages of notes. But I thank you for your time and your patience. If you have questions, I think we're going to hold those until the end. Is that okay? Thank you.
I love that quote, good neighbors make great neighborhoods, and that's really what this morning's session is all about, right? Starting at the very micro level of just one person, right? We all can make a little bit of an impact. If you want a good neighbor, and if you want to live in a great neighborhood, then you got to start off by being a good neighbor. We're going to kind of transition this to a little bit of a bigger level, and then our final speaker, after Cameron, is going to be more of like the practical next steps for you guys. But thank you guys so much for being here, and I'm just going to go ahead and reintroduce our keynote speaker. Her family roots are in the Midwest. Her mom was born and raised in Richmond, Indiana, and her dad in Columbus, Ohio. She moved to Indianapolis in 1980, gave birth to 4 amazing children here. Indianapolis is her home. She lives with her husband and her youngest daughter next door to her oldest daughter in North Square. Since '92, she's been an attorney. In 2008, her and her daughter Mina officially named their business Two Chicks and a Hammer. They rehabilitate homes on the near south side. They are currently in production for a television show on HGTV, and as we heard this morning, a national celebrity.
I asked Robin to leave her slides up because this is a broken window. If you go in a neighborhood where you see curbs like that, you know nobody cares. I'm the person in my neighborhood who gets the wheelbarrow and goes all the way down the street. I clean up all the curb muck, and what I can, I throw in the compost, what everything else, I try and throw in the trash. It's a little thing, but everybody can do this. You got kids in your neighborhood, they're wandering around, give them 10 cents, have them clean up the trash, have them clean up the curb muck, have them clean up the broken glass. If you have a problem from the city, what's the name of the app? There's an app on Request Indy. So if you have a problem, like people think our houses are where they're supposed to dump their trash. And it's not the neighbors. It is not the neighbors. It's the landlords. Because we got enough trash dumped, we know what it is. But in any case, use the Request Indy app and send in requests. Did everybody hear what I had to say during the opening? Did everybody hear that? I'm getting a head yes. Do you want to hear it again? No, you don't want to hear it again. My preference would be for you to ask questions. Before I take a question, I want to pimp Renew, because we bought 5 or 6 properties from Renew, all basically at one sitting. We didn't read anything we signed. I'm a lawyer by training, but what we know is we don't get these properties unless we sign, so we're like, we want the properties, we sign. What we learned later is there are income restrictions. We can only sell these properties to people who make a certain amount of money, which is great. I'm not complaining, but it means we have to be really, really, really careful when we rehab a property. You saw what we do. You get all new lumber, all new HVAC, all new electrical, all new plumbing. You get new flooring, new siding, new insulation, new drywall, new windows, new doors, new appliances, new everything. That's tough to do on a shoestring budget. It's just tough. So when we have income restrictions, you're not getting a granite countertop. I'm sorry, that's not happening. You're gonna get a really nice countertop, it's gonna look really good, but we're not gonna drop $5 grand on granite because you can't afford it. And I'm sorry that's the situation. But we care about having a variety of people in our neighborhoods. Everybody, I said this before, everybody brings a gift to the table. And I don't want our neighborhood to be full of one kind of person. I want doctors, and I want lawyers, and I want musicians, and I want artists, and I want young mothers, and I want elderly people, and I want people of all different races and religions and colors. I want all those ideas to all come to our neighborhoods. So I'm really happy that Renew exists because it gives us a chance to sell properties to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford them. Questions. Ask me questions. It's way better to ask questions. You don't hear me talk anymore.
What's the average cost of one of your makeovers?
When we first started, we were paying somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 for a house, and that wasn't through Renew. We're now paying up to $50,000 to buy a wreck of a house. And that's our fault. We did that. Us and the other rehabbers. And then we typically put somewhere between $120,000 and $150,000 into a house. So our first house, we did all the work ourselves. For production, we don't have the time to do that. And as we've tried to ramp up and do more houses, we've had to hire more employees. So we will give work to people in the neighborhoods if they have any skill to do anything. We're happy to do that. I like having neighborhood people working on our houses. When we went east of state, one of our employees, John, lived right across the street. He kept an eye on the house, which was awesome. So it costs us somewhere between $150,000 and $170,000 to do one of our houses. That's just what it costs, yes.
Is most of your focus going to be in that same area, or you going to go to the other side of the town?
I would like to stay in the near southeast side until every single house has someone living in it that loves it, and then we will move. There are some other areas in Indianapolis that I'm interested in, but we're not ready to branch out yet because we're not done where we are.
What are the other areas of town you're interested in?
That's a secret.
Gotta ask the right questions.
I think one of the reasons we were successful in Fountain Square, and what you need to know about our business model is we have to make money. Like, that's the thing, because I eat, I go to the grocery, they want money from me. I turn on my lights, IPL wants money from me. That's true. But between my daughter and I, our profit on our houses that we share, and you gotta remember, we did 2 to 4 houses a year for a really long time, is somewhere between $10,000 and $30,000. So if we did 2 houses in a year, and we made the minimum profit, we made $20,000, and we split that. That's where we both had other jobs for most of the time we've been doing this. Because we have to make money, or we can't keep doing it. We have to. But we're not gonna get rich doing what we're doing. We're not. It's not gonna happen. And that's okay with me. I never wanted to be rich. I didn't want to be famous either. I don't know how that happened. What was the question?
What other neighborhoods you're interested in?
So, but I think part of the reason we were successful in Fountain Square is we found that neighborhood at the right time. And there was a large inventory of very decrepit houses that we were able to buy at reasonable prices. And now that that's happened for the last, 7 or 8 years, there's a lot of development in Fountain Square, and we're actually kind of priced out of the neighborhood. So I don't want to tell people the next neighborhood I'm going to, because I want to buy all the really decrepit houses, and then I want to fix them up, and then people can move in. And the way we found Fountain Square is I drove around the city. I went to lots of different neighborhoods, and I just got to know the neighborhoods. And I looked at a lot of different houses, and I looked at prices, and you all can do that. You can find a neighborhood where there's 2 or 3 people on a block who love their homes, and you can tell. Buy the decrepit houses on that block. You won't be sorry. You just won't. And that's all we did. It's not that complicated. Yes.
Yeah, I'm like you and Robin. I'm mad because I didn't listen to Robin in the first place. I know we bought our houses about the same time. She did what she's supposed to do. I didn't listen to her, and so I'm reaping the consequences of not having done everything. So I had to get under my house, fix the joists myself because of it. How do you find the people? Because I'm still reaping the consequences. Like the whole
contractors?
Yes, like the electricity in one whole side went out that should have been done at the beginning. How do you find reputable people to deal with that?
That's the hardest thing about doing what we do. I've educated myself a lot, so there are a lot of things I can't do. Well, not can't, but won't. I am not climbing on a roof. I'm too old for those shenanigans. If I fall off that roof, something's breaking. It's going to be bad. But I know what a good roof looks like. I know how a roofer works. So the way we find them is trial and error. We ask a lot of friends, hey, did you have this person? Did they do a good job? And we now have a crew that, and this has taken a long time. We've gone through a lot of employees. And you just keep trying, keep trying. One of the tricks is, we don't give you all your money up front. Like if you need money for supplies, you're gonna get your money for supplies. But if you want all your money up front, you're not my employee. Because you're going to walk away and I'm never gonna see you again. That's one. But the gentleman behind you.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of, first of all, give you kudos on doing something positive in Indianapolis. I was one of the original followers on 2 Chicks and a Hammer with Facebook, 5, 6, 7, whatever years ago it was. But just to say that doing something positive and paying it forward, I'm extremely happy to be able to have sat in your first meeting over there and heard you speak and see some of the before and afters. And I can tell you just from experience that anybody that picks up a pickup truck and a hammer tries to be a contractor in Indiana. Okay? Let's be real, all right? I have had friends that are older folks that have been swindled because Joe Blow said, oh yeah, I'm a roofer, I'm a plumber. Well, guess what? Even though you're on Angie's list, don't mean you're legitimate. So like you just said, you'll give them money for supplies, which totally makes sense.
And the
But
supplies.
if the job's 20 grand and they want 15 up front, you're not gonna see them, they're gonna be in Barbados.
Right. The other thing we've started.
Been all over the media,
Yeah.
we already know.
We buy most of our supplies ourselves
Right.
for almost exactly that same reason. We have a really good relationship with the local Home Depot. For a long time, we were like their 5th largest buyer, which is crazy. I don't know how that happened. Like we got invited to the little breakfast for their 5 biggest buyers. All right, okay. Yes, we're in, because we have a resource in Indianapolis. I don't know if people feel comfortable using this resource or how State in Washington. There are gentlemen there every day who are willing to do this job, who speaks English. Okay, that whittles it down a little. And then I say, who was here first? And they will all point to the guy who was there first, because they all respect that. I don't know where that work ethic, that honesty comes from, but it's a great resource. It's all right. Yes?
Would you recommend that neighborhoods work with Renew Indianapolis to help them vet people that are applying for the properties to make sure they don't get things like flippers or?
Well, I think Renew already does that, and I don't know if there's an opportunity for that. Renew has a website, so you can look and see what property is available, and if there's a property in your neighborhood and you want to have control over who buys it, buy it from Renew. Right? There isn't really a way to, you guys check and make sure. See, because we're developers. I mean, that's what we are. We're a weird kind of developer, but they sell to us, and there's rules. We have to do it within 18 months. We have to, there's income restrictions on the people who buy it, and Mina has memorized those numbers. My daughter, I don't have them memorized. And so I don't think you really are going to get flippers. I don't think you're going to get people in. I think it's mostly homeowners, isn't it?
About 2/3 of our properties are sold or ultimately for homeownership. About half of those or a third of them will